Mike Muhney. Inspiring, engaging, compelling. Mike Muhney built his career around two words: people matter. Mike Muhney may not be a household name, but if you use CRM, you have him to thank. He's the co-inventor of Act Contact Software, the catalyst for the entire CRM industry. Popular topics include the real R in CRM. Protect your professional edge. Everybody sells. Start making the 1 degree of difference.
Story short, but this is what happened. I unexpectedly called on the CEO of a company. I got in to see him on a Friday afternoon, and he literally came out and he said, "Mike, I would love to talk to you, but I'm literally going on a skiing vacation with my family for 2 weeks in Colorado. Feel free to call me when I get back." Great, have a good time. I went out to my car, I wrote down her name, and I wrote down, ask him about a skiing vacation. I called him 3 weeks later. I said, "Hi, Mr. Smith, this is Mike Muhney from IBM. "Oh, hi, Mike, how you doing?" "Great, thank you." "Mr. Smith, how was your skiing vacation?" First words out of my mouth. Moment of silence, and this is what he said. "You know, you're probably a pretty smart guy working for IBM, and therefore you probably could safely assume that your competitors have called on me too," which they have before I left on my vacation. "And they all knew about the fact that I was going on a vacation, and they have all contacted me since I've gotten back. You're the last." He said, "But do you know you're the only one that asked me about my skiing vacation? What that tells me is you're a professional, you listened to me, and you cared about me enough to remember that. I do not like to deal with amateurs. Let's have that appointment." And I ended up selling him an IBM solution. The moral of the story is, in that moment in his mind, my reputation, based on his perspective, I eliminated competition. By that simple gesture. Little things do mean everything. Are you smart enough to know what everything is that can make the difference?
I believe that life is a contact sport. I know we're discussing business today, but think about it. In the entirety of the relationships that we all have, both business and personal, the quality of the connections will determine whether you win or lose. I have experienced Hail Mary passes often in my career, but most of the time I've had to rely and depend on and go back to the fundamentals. How I plan for something, how I train for it, how I execute that plan will determine or not the success or failure that I will realize in those relationships for whatever purpose they may be. Real relationships aren't about me. Real relationships are about you. You know, people do business with people they like. We've all heard that. And people tend to like those who express a genuine interest in them beyond what they want from them or want to give to them. So it's about that genuineness and interest in other people that leads to constructing that reputation that is so never ending and which depends on your success that helps close that gap. What is your most important asset? Think about that for a moment. The audiences have told me things like my education, my family, my health, and of course, all of those are great assets to have, valuable in fact. However, as it comes to business, each and every one of those also depend on one critical thing, in my opinion, and that is your reputation. Think about it. How you are perceived or how you think you are perceived might be different than how you actually are perceived. But what's important to understand is the perception of others determines your reputation. And it's your reputation, after all, that will determine referrals and success in your life, without which it's not likely to happen. How often has someone told you to stay away from somebody else? What they're essentially saying is that person can't be trusted, that person or that company has a bad reputation.
I'm a lifelong student of the dynamics of relationships, and not only creating more of them, but creating more effective relationships more efficiently and permanently and meaningfully, right? Because that's what business is all about. I like to tell people that meaningful business is the result of meaningful relationships. How do you distinguish yourself from your competition? That's what it's all about, because we have choices. As buyers, which we all are, we have choices. So how do I go the extra mile? I say that there's no traffic jam on the extra mile. How are you getting there?
Your reputation, everything in your life stems from it. It is in front of you, behind you, above you, below you, on either side of you, but it's not determined by you. There is a gap between what we think of ourselves and how others see us, and what we have to work on in managing ourselves all the time is closing that gap, such that there is no gap. But there's always gaps. Come on, we're all human. None of us is perfect, but we want to minimize that gap so that how we see ourselves, how you see yourself, is fairly closely aligned with how others do see you. Every attempt does not produce a hit. And every hit does not produce a home run. But every home run is the result of both the attempt and the hit.
If you're looking for a dynamic speaker who will inspire an audience to achieve greater success, you're looking for Mike Muhney.